Thank you, beloved. Yes, it seems to be a good thing to do right now because universal human is a part of what is emerging in us now. And you can tell from the name, it's a glorious thing. And compassion is a part of it. So I'll give you this small sample from this book. Compassion. Begin with the assumption that all experience originates in compassion, the compassion of the universe. When an experience in the Earth School activates fear, it activates a part of the personality that has no compassion. Yet, that part of the personality itself was created with compassion. It was created by your soul in consultation with non-physical teachers as it formed the personality that became its incarnation into the Earth School that became you. The parts of the personality that originate in fear are designed to bring the awareness of the personality to the parts of itself that show it clearly what it must change in order to move beyond the control of those parts. While it is in the control of those parts, it cannot experience compassion, period. It cannot experience tenderness, period. It cannot experience concern for others, period. I'm adding the word period to make this as clear as I can. It cannot open itself to the experiences of others as if they were its own experiences because it cannot see others as anything but separate from itself. In other words, it cannot see others as anything but objects. Said another way, when individuals experience frightened parts of their personalities through painful sensations in their energy processing centers, or critical, judgmental, unforgiving thoughts, they are experiencing parts of themselves that have no compassion. Those parts are concerned only for themselves and are driven by fear to attempt to alter the outside world. That is the pursuit of external power. There is no compassion in the pursuit of external power. Emotional awareness is a big part of this process. As individuals use their emotional awareness to distinguish frightened parts of their personalities from loving parts, so they can challenge the frightened parts and cultivate the loving parts, they move themselves toward compassion. For when a frightened part of a personality is challenged repeatedly, the control of that part lessens, and as it does, so also does the cruelty, the coldness, the lack of care, the lack of compassion that control the personality. And the personality moves more into the softer, healing energy of love. In this movement, there is compassion. Therefore, you can utilize or build upon all that you learned about authentic power to learn about compassion. You can simply begin to see the creation of authentic power from yet another healing perspective, the perspective of the development of compassion within yourself. A frightened part of a personality cannot be challenged without awareness and volition. Without these, the frightened parts of a personality that the soul gave the personality at its incarnation remain strong and create powerfully throughout the time that the personality is in the Earth School. As the personality creates without awareness, it creates with fear. In other words, it creates painful and destructive consequences. When, in turn, it does not bring its awareness and volition to bear upon those experiences, it creates yet more of the same in ignorance, that is, unconsciously. Were the universe not one of compassion, none of this dynamic would be happening or possible. Buddhists call the continual creation of karmic consequences the wheel of samsara. It is always turning. Creating authentic power stops the wheel from creating painful and destructive consequences. The experiences itself of temptation is awareness of the plans of a frightened part of the personality before it acts on them. Not something conjured by a malevolent external power or intelligence or presence. But it is awareness, temptation is awareness of the plans of a frightened part of the personality, your personality, before it acts on them. This also is an experience of the compassion of the universe. Through temptation, the universe shows us, through compassion, the universe shows the personality what it will create if it acts on those parts, the plans of a frightened part of its personality. It gives it a dry run, a dress rehearsal for its consideration, so that it can choose to implement those plans or challenge the frightened part of itself that intends them. In other words, temptation gives the personality the opportunity not to act on a frightened part of itself before the energy of fear spills over into the energy spheres of other students in the Earth School and creates painful karmic consequences of fear. In short, temptation allows the creation of the conscious, constructive consequence of acting with love rather than the unconscious, destructive, painful consequences of acting with fear, of acting in ignorance. All of this has to do with compassion. And you can bring all of this into your life. Everything you do in creating authentic power has to do with the creation of compassion. For without creating compassion for yourself, in yourself, you cannot be compassionate with others. It is impossible. Let's see. Do you think a group share, beloved, or a visual?
Wow, that was so powerful. Gary and I pretty much every night read this book. Gary reads it to me, I should say.
A part of it.
A piece, a chapter usually. And every time I just feel it deeper. And I'm so grateful. And today, because all of us are together, I really felt it so deeply. I could feel all of our energy together and all of our guides and teachers with us, supporting us, and really feeling this in such a deep way. I'm just so grateful. Yeah. I'm sure you have you have experiences of compassion that you might be able to share, but maybe you can see that maybe some of the things you thought were compassion weren't. Maybe they were sympathy or empathy and not compassion. But I'm wondering, if anyone, the support team, would like to share some things that they experienced with compassion. If you have anything that really seems to fit that, please feel free to share. And if you're not sure, it's okay too. whatever you feel.
Yeah, I have something I would love to share.
Oh, hi, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Hi, everyone. Every event I come to, I learn something, and sometimes I learn a lot of things. That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Banford, when you shared, it just opened my heart to really looking so much deeper at the Vladimir Putins in my life. I mean, only they don't have that name, but people that I've judged so harshly. And what I'm seeing even more deeply is that the reason my frightened parts judge them is because I'm focusing on their frightened parts, and the frightened parts I see in them are the ones I don't want to look at in myself. So I have a younger brother that I've just judged so harshly over the years, but I have challenged those frightened parts. And I've challenged the frightened parts that have no compassion for myself in doing that. So I'm grateful for your sharing, Banford, and what you shared, Gary, after that. It's just opened my heart even more. I mean, I'm just seeing things so much more clearly. And, you know, I look at the people in my life who are teachers, you know, like you and Linda, my spiritual partners. But what I'm realizing is that my brother is a great teacher for me. He lives in a lot of fear and a lot of pain. My heart is just so open to him in the conversation that you've had. So I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
I have an experience to share. A couple weeks ago, I pulled into the grocery store to the parking lot, and in the corner of my eye, I caught this homeless woman that was standing in the parking lot with her young son in a stroller with a sign asking for money. And initially, a frightened heart judged her. And I thought, wow, I really hope she's not using her son as a pawn. And I was going to just go into the store. But I felt it. I felt that pain in me, the judgment, and I didn't want to nurture that. So I made the choice to connect with her. So I walked over and I asked her name, and I asked her son's name. And then I just started a conversation with her, just wanting to know a little bit about her. And I ended it with giving her some money. And I said, I really hope this supports you. And, you know, she thanked me. And I walked away, and I'm so glad I challenged that in me, the judgment. Since then, I've thought about her a lot. Just send her love, and hope she's doing well. In the past, I would have stayed with my judgment and ignored her, or I would have had a frightened part that felt sorry for her. I would want to caretake her and then give her money so that I could feel better. So I really was thankful for that experience and an opportunity to see it differently.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
Nicole, I was wondering if you might want to share about your experiences, since you shared so deeply about your son.
Yeah. So what I noticed was that, and after speaking with some of my spiritual partners, that when I shared, it took a lot of my courage to share what I shared yesterday. And what I noticed was that I frightened part come up today in me. That I didn't want to feel it anymore. And so it kept coming up for me. And one of my spiritual partners pointed that out to me, and I'm so grateful that I shared with her what was happening, and that she asked me if it was possible that I just didn't want to feel it today. Because that's what happened. And so it kept coming up. So I'm just really feeling so grateful for my spiritual partners right now.
So what didn't you want to feel, Nicole?
That pain of powerlessness that had come up for me when I decided to share about my experience, about my history. And just that pain in my chest, it's everywhere. My solar plexus, just everything got really tight today when it kept coming up in different breakout groups that I was in. And I don't know, obviously, the intentions of other people, but I know that my frightened part, when I would hear somebody share something that was very deep, sometimes would want to caretake them or would want to share my experience with them. And so I know those frightened parts would come up for me after somebody shared very deeply with me or in a large group. And so I suspect that maybe some of that had happened today during my groups. That people may have had frightened parts that were activated by what I shared. But what I know is that I had frightened parts that were activated by what I shared.
So I feel like it's quite a process to be able to see things from loving parts of the personality sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It really takes some time when you have things happen with people that are dear to you and you can't do anything about it. You can do nothing about it.
And a lot of practice.
And what? Yes.
So much practice.
Yes, so much practice. But the thing is that isn't it so beautiful though to keep practicing, because that's why you're here. That's an agreement that you have with the soul.
Absolutely.
And whatever the other soul does is what they do. But your agreement is to create authentic power, meaning to be loving no matter what. I mean, that's really your agreement. And so I anything else than that would be a distraction and put you in fear. So
yes.
So what you're doing, what I'm hearing you're doing, is you're doing your best to create with love. You're doing your best to feel what you're feeling and create from love.
Absolutely. And not indulge the frightened parts that still come up that want to get into the story or whatever those frightened parts want to do.
Yes. Well, you can bet what they want to do is not create authentic power. They're not interested in creating with love.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, I have the thought that these sharings are so deep and rich.
Yeah.
And what we've been considering as a spiritual partnership is so deep and meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And the question now is, what are you? What are we going to do with what we've learned, with what we've heard, with what we've experienced? And so I'm thinking of a song
Oh, yes.
that might be just appropriate for now.
Perfect.
Because now, the
Perfect.
point is, how can each of us apply, if we choose, what we have learned or what insights we've had as we have heard
Yeah.
others share and as
Yes.
we ourselves have grown in this time together? Or not, but I feel mostly have grown. So if you agree, beloved, let's play that song.
I think so too. I think that would be, everyone could look at what it is that, how that will support you. How that will support you in creating with an intention of love rather than intention of fear. That's what we keep working with. And I think just hearing it, closing your eyes, listening to it, and then we'll see what comes up for you, what you learn about yourself.
Yeah.
So let's play the song now. So get yourself ready. I would recommend that you close your eyes and just really feel this.
Indeed.
And open yourself to your guidance and see what comes to you, what insights come to you.
And turn your volume up if you need it to hear the words clearly.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar, swinging along, or for a few moments in my life, I'm hurtling across space in between trapeze bars. Now, most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar for the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. I know most of the right questions and even some of the right answers. But once in a while, as I'm merrily or not so merrily swinging along, I look out ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging towards me. It's empty. And I know in that place in me that knows that this new trapeze bar has my name on it. It's my next step. My aliveness coming to get me. And in my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I have to release my grip on the present, well-known bar to move on to the new one. Now, each time it happens to me, I hope, no, I pray that I won't have to grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar, and for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab onto the new bar. And each time I'm filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of knowing, I have always made it. Each time I'm afraid that I will miss, that I'll be crushed on the unseen rocks in the bottomless chasm between the bars. But I do it anyway. Maybe this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy. You do it anyway because somehow to keep hanging on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. And so for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar across the dark void of the past is gone, the future is not yet here. It's called transition. I have come to believe that this is the only place that real change occurs. I mean real change, not the pseudo change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get punched. I have noticed that in our culture, this transition zone is looked upon as a no thing, as a no place, between places. Sure, the old trapeze bar was real, and the new one coming towards me, I hope that's real too. But the void between is just a scary, confusing, disorienting nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as
What's the
possible.
earliest you can drop them off?
What a waste.
10. The earliest? Oh, and Denise is the latest.
10 to 11.
I have a sneaking suspicion
It's
that the
10 to
transition zone is the only real thing, and that the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid the void where the real change occurs.
How long did it take her?
Now, whether or not
2
my
hours.
hunch is true, it remains that the transition zones in our lives are incredibly
6,
rich
7, got
places,
breakfast. got
They
them
should
off
be
by 10,
honored.
drive back.
even savored.
Both of us?
What do you're gonna go home?
With all the pain and fear and
Yeah,
feelings of
okay,
being out of
go home.
control that
You wanna
can
come back?
accompany transition, they are still the most
Only because I
alive,
have 2 presentations that I have to
growth-filled,
work on. Remember, like
passionate,
the one in person.
expansive moments in our
No, the
lives.
Connecticut one hasn't been confirmed yet.
And so
Crazy.
transformation of
Closes.
fear may have nothing to do with making
And then
fear
you don't
go
really
away,
help me
but
because you're
rather
so busy always
giving
and you're
ourselves
gone,
permission
so
to
I waste my
hang
time
out
doing nothing. And
in
then
the
it's same thing
transition
with them.
between
I don't do
trapeze
anything.
bars.
That's why it's
Transforming our need to grab that new bar is allowing
on
ourselves
Thursday.
to dwell in the only place where change really happens.
It's gonna be actually
It can
tomorrow.
be terrifying,
You said that
can
tomorrow
also
might
be
be-
enlightening.